Hello, my name is Linda McAnany, and welcome to my show. I often start this program by saying how fortunate we are in our community. I'm going to start it today by saying the same thing. How fortunate we are in our community to have the Runge Conservation Nature Center. You know, they not only have wonderful walking trails that are open 12 months out of the year, but also they have these great programs for people of all ages. With me today is the manager of the Nature Center, Kathy Cavender. Kathy,
Hi,
thank
Linda.
you very much for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure.
And taking time out of your day, because I know you're busy.
Well, yeah, I'm sure everybody is in different ways.
And especially during the fall, although I think you're busy all year round, are you not?
There really isn't a slow time.
I think that's
Right.
good. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Now, you've been the manager for 15 years, but you've been at the Nature Center since the beginning, which was 1993, is that right?
That's correct. I've been very fortunate because I worked at the main office before the Nature Center was built, and so I was able to get involved with the exhibit design and the design of the building and various other aspects of the facility before it opened. And you know, Jeff City is my community, so I feel very fortunate to have been involved with the Jeff City community for so long.
That's great. Is this your home, by the way?
Actually, I grew up in Westphalia, Missouri.
Okay. Very
And
good.
so it's just 20 minutes down the road, and so I feel like this part of Missouri is my home.
That's wonderful. Now, one thing about the Nature Center is that you encourage people to get to the outdoors and experience nature. And as a result, you offer programs, as I mentioned earlier, for people of all ages, starting out with elementary school children. And I see many buses in and out of the Nature Center bringing children in. Tell us a little bit about the children's programs to start out
Okay,
with.
Linda, well, it actually starts before elementary school. The earliest programs we have are 0-year-olds, and it's for it's called Babes in the Woods, and it's for babies and their caregivers so that they can learn to introduce their babies at a very early age to the outdoors and to nature. And then we go to the toddler age, and 3 to 6 years old, and developmentally a whole different level. And we have programs called Little Acorns. We also
The lake ones?
Little Acorns.
Little Acorns, okay.
And that's for our toddlers, our 3 to 6 year olds. And then from there, we have elementary aged students. We have programs for school classes if they want to come, but we also have general public programming for all ages of kids. We call them conservation kids. So we have programs for that age and that developmental stage, and then it goes on from there to teenagers. We just had a teen program this weekend where they went up to the Endangered Wolf Sanctuary up in St. Louis. And
Now that's a new one to me.
the Endangered Wolf
I've
Center.
not heard that one.
Yeah, they do a lot of research, and they work with wolves from all over the world, and they return them, hopefully, back into the wild. So it's a really interesting location, and our teens were up there and at a conservation area called Rockwoods, and they spent the whole day up there.
That's
They had
great.
a blast. So that's teenagers, and then we have adult-only programs, and so those include things like, we have Nature's Needlers, which is a program for adults focused on quilting. And they'll have a little program about woodlands or whatever the quilt block is. Then they learn how to piece the block together, and every couple of years we have a quilt show showing what the people from this group have done. And these nature quilts are actually up right now.
Is that right? Now, do you ultimately sell these quilts, or are they?
No, but we've had a lot of interest
I was
in
going to
that.
say, you probably have people wanting to bid on them, certainly.
Yeah, no, they're works of art, definitely, but we just we design the blocks, and then we provide that block, and from there it's their quilt, and they are gracious enough to let us display every couple years. So,
Well, you know, one thing that I think is encouraging, because in today's world, texting is a very important part of what we do. And one thing that I just learned from you is that you can text, or an individual can text, and find out what existing program is happening right now and what's upcoming, et cetera.
yeah, we've just started a texting campaign. We started it in July, and we're encouraging people to sign up for a Runge text. And we don't want to bombard people with texts, because I know in this day and age we do get bombarded. But you'll get maybe 4 to 6 texts a month that will remind you of things coming up at the Nature Center, or maybe there's a closure of a trail and it's a way we can let you know. But it's really just a reminder, hey, we're here, don't forget about us, there's something going on this weekend.
That's great publicity. And
yeah.
if someone's interested in getting a text, what do they need to do?
All they have to do is text the word MDC Runge, R-U-N-G-E, MDC Runge, and then you text it to this number, 468-311, and you'll be signed up.
Okay, and we'll repeat that again later in the program, because it is a wonderful opportunity to know what's going on a regular basis. And you won't be bombarded, but it's a good way to find out what's going on in the Nature Center. You know, Kathy, there is so much going on every day. And I say that because I went through one of the brochures that I was fortunate to get, and they're available at the Nature Center. And you have all kinds of programs, not just, as an example, for adults, not just about nature, but also about, as you say, activities that they can do. How do these programs come about? Do you just kind of create them?
Well,
Or are they established programs that you have? And also, if somebody is interested, do they need to make reservations to be part of the programs?
Good questions, Linda. First of all, some of those programs are established, but we have a staff planning every year, and we kind of set out the schedule for the next year. Sometimes we change, so there'll be some changes coming up for this next year. But our main goal is to hit all the developmental stages, as well as families. Most of our programs are for families, so all different ages. And a lot of the programs are seasonal. A lot of them are programs that we just sit down and brainstorm and say, what would you want to know about? Or what's really cool, what's happening in nature now? And we develop those programs. And we also have a whole lot of volunteers, and I know we'll talk about that later, but they are amazing as far as creativity and giving us ideas for programs.
And your facility is such that you can establish a lot of programs right there on the grounds and show illustrations about which you are talking. Is that correct?
We're very fortunate. We are part of the Missouri Department of Conservation, and with that, we are able to, we have a print shop, we have media specialists, we have photographers and videographers that are at the main office and are doing things statewide, but we're able to tap into a lot of the photography that our wildlife photographers have done, we have artists, and we're able to use those kinds of information and very artistic works to talk about Missouri's forest, fish, and wildlife resources.
And you know, one thing I've learned after moving here 25 plus years ago, there are a number of wonderful illustrations of exactly what Kathy's talking about in the building, and we're going to talk about that a little later as well. But demonstrations, illustrations, people can learn so much about an environment that perhaps they've lived in their entire life.
Well, one of the things we're learning is that people are more frequently disconnected to nature.
Is that right? That's interesting.
Yes. And there is a word that was coined in the last 10 years called nature deficit disorder. by Richard Louv. And that's the whole premise, that many of our medical problems are partly due to the fact that we don't spend enough time in nature. And so there's a whole line of study going on related to this. We know it's important for good development to be connected to the outdoors. We know it's a healthy way to live. And so more and more, we're trying to emphasize the fact that, hey, not only is this nature fascinating and wonderful, but it's good for you too.
And I think it's also people gain a respect
Oh,
for the
absolutely.
environment when they know more about the way nature plays in part of that environment. We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk about the facility itself and all these wonderful trails that are available for people to walk, as I mentioned, 12 months out of the year, and also how you can volunteer. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Come on. How you feel? How you feel?
I'm feeling good. Spin me, spin me.
Got you.
Oh, goodness.
A bright future starts with a healthy lifestyle. Good nutrition and physical activity are fuel for your child's mind and body.
Attaboy, Pinot.
And the food pyramid will help you find the right balance. Just remember, every color, every day.
Nothing can stop me now.
Eat right.
Here's an apple.
Be active.
Come on, I'll race you home.
Make it balance.
This calls for a celebration.
A healthy lifestyle can lead to great things for your child. Visit mypyramid.gov to learn more.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Kathy Cavender. She is the manager of the Runge Conservation Nature Center here in Jefferson City. And once again, Kathy, thanks for joining me.
Glad
you
to
know,
be here.
we talked about earlier. We talked about the importance of being able to get out in nature, and I'm just amazed at the trails that are on the property. Tell us a little bit about those trails.
Well, you know, those of you who have been around the community for a long time might remember there really wasn't a lot out on the west end of town for years and years, and that the area that the Nature Center sits on now was the old Dooley Farm. And so it was all farmland, and what we are doing is managing this area for forest, fish, and wildlife. So we're working with the land to bring back wildlife. And it's been a work in progress for over 30 years now, because we had trails there long before there was a building there. And now, when you walk the trails, you can see a lot of wildlife, a lot of native plants. I met someone as I was walking the trail recently, and she said, you know, everybody asks me, what season do I like the best to walk out here? And she said, I think we have 365 seasons of the year.
That's
you
wonderful.
have to be out here every day to see them. And she had been walking the trails diligently for 18 years.
Wow.
And I thought, you know, that's exactly right, because unless you're out there a lot, you really don't understand all those connections.
That's right. And you know, each trail, and there are a number of them, but each trail is conducive to whatever effort you want to make. I don't think I said that quite right, but if you are a established hiker, there are trails for that. If you are just a casual walker, there are trails for that too.
Oh,
that's-
absolutely.
And you have, they can come over and see pictures, so to speak, of the trails. So it's a great opportunity to take a walk in nature and see nature. In fact, the last time I was over there, I saw 4 deer, and I think they were twins. 2 of them were twins, and I'm thinking, what a wonderful experience, not only for people my age, but for kids as well. So
Yeah, it is fun.
now this time of the year, going into the fall, we're taping this into the fall, there are a lot of wonderful programs. Is any come to mind for you of, you know, seeing, or the building, talking about the building and the displays there?
Well, fall is a wonderful time just to get out and walk the trails with the changing of the leaves. It's just wonderful. As I was walking the trails at lunch today, I saw somebody getting their picture taken with 3 box turtles that happened to be in the same area along the trail. But we do have a lot of programs for families, and that's for all ages. And we have something every Saturday. And it goes from 10 to 2, and we just call them What's Going On. And it's every Saturday. It's in the lobby. There are always tabletop displays, some kind of activity. Sometimes there's a walk with it. It has a variety of different forms that it takes. I think the one they had this last weekend was on owls.
Oh, is that
The
right?
weekend before that, it was called Butterfly Surprise, and it was all the kids went out and collected butterflies, adults went out and collected butterflies. We talked about monarchs and all different kinds of activities. So every weekend, and a couple things coming up. The day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, a lot of people are out there shopping. For those of you who don't like being out there amongst the crowds, come over to the Nature Center, or if your wife is shopping or your husband's shopping, you come over to the Nature Center, because we are having a whole what's going on squirrels. It's called Squirrely Squirrels, and it's all about the squirrels in Missouri. Lots of different activities and a lot of fun. And it's just a way to get away from that hustle and bustle.
Right. And by the way, if you need your shop fix or shopping fix, they have a gift shop in the building itself, so you could fix on that
Yeah,
too.
we can help you with that.
You know, obviously volunteers play a very important part of what you do. And I'm familiar, in fact, a couple of my friends, one in particular is a very good volunteer, but it's an opportunity to not only learn, but be involved as well. What do you have some of your volunteers doing, and do you need volunteers?
We rely on volunteers. We have about 60 volunteers. It's a very formal program, so we bring on a class every year and a half or so. And we only have 2 permanent naturalists. So we rely on volunteers for a lot of our programming. They do everything from behind the scenes things, such as collecting insects and putting them into our collection and making sure they're identified and available to use for the public for identification purposes. They have a bluebird trail, both at the Nature Center and at the main office, that they maintain. They cut things out for crafts, they garden, they landscape. They are very skilled people with lots of different interests, and we work with each volunteer to try to satisfy whatever interests they have in the outdoors. And they do a lot of our programs. They present to scouts. If naturalists aren't available, then we will open it up to volunteers. We work with them to make sure they're trained and ready to give these kinds of programs. And we have a lot of volunteers that develop ongoing programs or programs on their own, original programs. For example, one of our volunteers is in charge of adventure birding. And just a couple weeks ago, they did a birding biking day where they biked on the Katy Trail and they birded and they watched the warblers coming through. We have a group that's in charge of nature needlers. We have volunteers that developed and are in charge of a program on nature and how to use nature design in art.
And you know, you stop and think how, we mentioned earlier, how important these volunteers are, because the hours, as an example over there, the building hours are Tuesday through Saturday, 8 to 5 p.m. On Thursday, it's open from 8 in the morning until 8 p.m. in the evening. They're closed, the building's closed on Sunday and Monday. However, the trail hours are from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., closed only 3 days a year. So you can understand how, with a limited number of staff, it's so important to have those volunteers. So keep that in mind.
And what I love about it is they bring the community in. They are the community, so hopefully, I'm glad to hear you have some friends that are volunteering. Hopefully they're doing some of our marketing.
They are. A good friend of mine, her name is Jan, she's a special lady, but she is a huge supporter of the Nature Center, and not only in the neighborhood, but in her church, et cetera. And she has been volunteering for years.
Yes.
So it's a wonderful opportunity, as you say, for outreach as well. Now, you mentioned the building. You've got some wonderful displays in the building. Are you making some changes? Is this change time? How does that happen?
You know, we've been open 22 years, so it is change time for many things. Out on the trail, on the short trail, which is accessible to people in wheelchairs, that trail we're doing an Explore classroom, a Nature Explore area. That's being worked on. We just started last week, and we'll be working on it, hopefully have it ready for spring. Inside, we are working on a 3-phase project where we are redoing our permanent exhibits. So it's a long process, takes a lot of time, but we hopefully next year we'll get our first fabrication and installation of a third of our exhibits to refurbish these exhibits, change them around a little bit. And we also have constantly changing exhibits in our lobby area. So every month, every 2 months, there's a whole new exhibit there. We have a 3-dimensional exhibit that's rotating down one of our hallways. And we have an exhibit that we change out every year, so there's hopefully something new there. So if you think you've been to Runge lately, I ask you to come back, and I bet you'll find something new there.
And by the way, it's not only visually what you see, but there's some sounds of nature as well throughout that building, and that's one of the fascinating things to me, is that that's where I learned some of the fowl and the animals in our forest, was hearing them at the Nature Center. So that's a wonderful opportunity.
Yes, there's also a wildlife viewing area there. So one side is all glass, and it's a little room that you can sit in and watch birds. We feed the birds there. We often get turkey there, and other animals as well, like chipmunks and deer. But we are trying to feed the birds, and it's got a little stream running through it, and it's just a very fun, nice place to sit and reflect.
Well, you know, there's a number of locations on the trails to do just that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of the reasons that when I started walking the trails, I found so appealing, is that I could sit and reflect after walking a while, or just enjoy the quietness of nature. And that's a wonderful opportunity for people, because many times we live in a rather noisy world. So it's very peaceful there as well.
Yes, and because we are all about nature and wildlife, we don't allow running on the area, and we don't allow dogs even on leashes, because the wildlife can sense that, and it affects their behavior. So I think that's part of what makes it peaceful. And the Greenway is close, and Memorial Park is close, so this community has a lot of areas for all of these different interests.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I had forgotten. There are some rules, and there are rules that are necessary to maintain that natural environment, etc. So you're doing an outstanding job. I applaud you for everything that you're doing, and I know it's very busy over there, many days throughout the week or the year, but it's a wonderful opportunity for people to interact with nature.
And that's what it's all about.
That's right. That's exactly right. And if you're interested in learning more about the Nature Center, you can call 573-526-5544, or you can visit www.missouriconservation.org. And as we mentioned earlier, that text number.
Yes, it is, text the word MDC Runge to the number 468311.
That's wonderful. So hopefully you'll get involved, or if you don't get involved, at least go take a look.
Yes.
And be a part of this wonderful place in our community. Kathy, thank you again.
You're
look
welcome.
forward to seeing you over there as well.
Yes.
And we look forward to seeing you next time. Good night and God bless.